Hello again, I'm Robert Fithen. Welcome to the middle of February 1983 as I continue the deep dive into the albums of 1983 going chronologically by release date, and I'm rating them, not ranking them, rating them on a scale from 1 star to 5 stars, and it's all ratings based on a curve. I'm rating these as if no other albums exist except for the albums from 1983. So that's why some of the ratings, you're like, that's not really a 5-star album, or yeah, there's worse albums than that 1-star album. That's why it's all rating on a curve. So let's get right back to it. In February of 1983, Bow Wow Wow released their second album. I think they only had 2. This was the second one, called When the Going Gets Tough, the Tough Get Going. Not a very good title for an album. Maybe that's one of the reasons it didn't really go anywhere. But Bow Wow Wow, of course, the new wave group that had the cover version of I Want Candy on their earlier album. It was all over the video channels, and it was this quirky, oh my god, they've got mohawks, and they're crazy, wacky, and they got a weird name, Bow Wow Wow, oh wow, new wave. And this album was pretty much ignored. They're basically a one-hit wonder for I Want Candy. And listening to this album, it makes me believe that maybe they shouldn't have been a one-hit wonder. They should have probably been maybe a two-hit wonder. This is really fun album. Really upbeat, really fun. Great music on here. Puts you in a good mood. Definitely has that early 80s feel. They do kind of retread that same sort of kind of rhythm that I Want Candy had used a lot by Adam and the Ants in the early days as well. But yeah, there's some really good songs on here that, again, could have been hit singles if they would have been promoted correctly. I always assume that that's the reason stuff doesn't become hits if it's a decent song, because enough bad songs certainly became big hits. It's probably because the promotional money was not there. And this album is really kind of hard to find even these days. I've never seen it anywhere. Apparently, according to Discogs, it only had one U.S. Pressing. Not even multiple pressings at the same time, and was only re-released on CD in the US once, and that was much, much later on, so kind of a really overlooked album. But the first 3 songs on here, Aphrodisiac, Hold Me, and Roustabout, I think any one of those could have been a single if it was promoted properly. Very fun stuff. Again, a lot of kind of, going back to the I Want Candy kind of beats and whatever, but there is some variety here as well. A nice acoustic number on side 2 called The Man Mountain, which is, a little bit of a different sound for them, but it's all pretty much in this kind of quirky, fun, upbeat, not taking itself super seriously, but got the talent and the music there to make you believe that, okay, well, it's not exactly throwaway type, just gonna toss off something and maybe it'll sell. I mean, there's some real thought put into this. So yeah, they've got that kind of early 80s, 60s girl group kind of throwback sound on a lot of the songs here as well. But they, it was that kind of deal. Everything is 20 years later. So in the early 80s, a lot of it was thrown back to like that fun 60s girl group kind of thing. And, they definitely had that here. They broke up, I believe, right after this, fired the lead singer. The lead singer, I guess, didn't even know she had been fired. She had found out via a news article or something, if I remember the story correctly. But, yeah, Bow Wow Wow, when the tough going gets tough, the tough get going. Really big cliche title for such a, quirky, new wavy kind of outrageous band from the early 80s. I think that might have been another reason why this didn't go anywhere. But don't let it pass you by. Give it a listen. It's kind of hard to find, like I said. But if you do, and you find it from the $5 bin or something like that, pick it up, and it's a lot of fun. I'm going to give this 4 stars. On February 11th, Marty Balin released his second solo album called Lucky. And of course, Marty Balin from Jefferson Airplane, Jefferson Starship, he was the one, especially on the later albums, was always coming in with those soft love ballads like Miracles, and on Jefferson Airplane like Today, and those so sweet love ballads. Love is going to save us. We can fight the world and go through with our love as our strength. And of course that trend continues here, but much more in an adult contemporary way. But the songs are really well structured. I actually liked this a lot more than I thought I would. It is not for, hard rock fan. If you're expecting some kind of hard rock crank it up thing or some sort of way out new wave punk type thing, this is the opposite of that. It is Marty Balin after all. But I've always really liked his voice. I think his voice suits this kind of material really well. The album does start off with 2 real clunkers, though. Not the 2 worst songs are the first 2 songs. So yeah, you might just want to start off with track 3. The album starts off with a song called "Born to Be a Winner," and that song is exactly what its title sounds like. You were born to be a winner, yeah, you're a champ, yeah, you're a winner. You know, it just sounds like some sort of a Wheaties commercial song or something that would play at some 80s movie where the guy, the gymnast, is working out or something like that, or, you know, the underdog is finally getting in shape and he's training for the big game or something. I don't know. It's terrible. And then the second song is called "What Do People Like?" Hey, people like rock and roll. That does not suit Marty Balin at all, singing about how the people want some rock and roll. Now, obviously, he was in one of the premier rock bands of the late 60s, but yet and still. This whole rock and roll thing barely works for anyone. Usually that comes off as super cheesy and ridiculous, even when a hard rock band does it. Certainly Marty Balin doing it on a love song album is just completely out of place and whatever. But yeah, so then we get to then he gets, you know, he's veering all over, and then he finally gets in his lane and stays there for the rest of the album. Love songs, love conquers all. Ooh, baby, let's have a sexy love night together. That type of thing. There's 10 songs on here. Half of them have the word love in the title, and some of them are very, very catchy, especially the final track, "When Love Comes." You'll be humming that thing or singing the chorus of that despite yourself if you listen to that enough. So decent love kind of ballads. Marty Balin with his great voice. You know, just skip over those first 2 tracks. I mean, Marty Balin comes out even before Jefferson Airplane. He had a song called "I Specialize in Love." That really says it all. He certainly does. And this album is full of that. This follows up his album just called Balin that had that big song "Hearts" on it. There's no big songs on here. I don't think any of these became huge hit singles, maybe on the light rock stations, but certainly were not pop hits and definitely were not rock hits. Yeah, you may be unfamiliar with the entire thing, such as I was. But like I said, instantly catchy tunes on here, a few of them, and it's Marty Balin doing his thing. If you don't like that, you're not going to like this. If you do like it, there's some really good stuff on here to get into. Overall, I'll give Lucky from Marty Balin 3 stars. Doing this super deep dive into the albums of 1983 chronologically, I've talked about great albums that I've known and loved over the years and have heard, 100 times or whatever. I've talked about albums that I've gotten reacquainted with, new ones that I've discovered, and this would be one of the ones that I had never heard before. But this one absolutely blew me away. I love this album. The debut album from the trio called Rock Goddess. These are 3 women, 2 sisters, Julie and Jody Turner, and their friend from school, Tracy Lamb. They formed this band back in the mid-late 70s, so they'd been around for a while, playing in clubs and whatever, and got their chops, paid their dues, and put out their debut in February of 1983 in the UK, in Europe. I think there was, pressing in Germany and some other places. Not in the US, though. I don't think Americans know about this little secret at all. They are called Rock Goddess. That name is horrible. I would never buy an album unheard by anybody named Rock Goddess or Rock God, for that matter, or Rock Gods. That's a terrible name, and I'm assuming that's why they didn't become more popular than they were. They were on A&M Records, so they were on an American label, but never promoted, never released in the U.S. until 2009 when a CD reissue came out. So no vinyl at all. This is going to be completely impossible to find unless you just basically order it, if you're in the United States anyway. But I probably will get around to doing that at one point. I'm just hoping to find a U.S. seller that's got this. Right now there are none, so I don't have to pay the shipping all the way from Europe. But man, this thing just comes blasting out right off the jump. I mean, just energetic, well produced. You can hear. I mean, it's a trio. So you've got, the bass player is one of the sisters. The other sister bass player is the high school friend. You got one of the sisters on drums, backing vocals, and then one of the sisters on guitar and vocals. And this is exactly what I love. It sounds like a kind of a even more energetic version of the Runaways. Because every time there's a girl or female or woman rock band, they're always either compared to Heart or they're compared to the Runaways. This is more like the Runaways. Just an absolute blast all the way through. The energy never lets up. There are a couple of songs where, you know, the intensity drops back, but then the lyrics make up for it, such as on the song Start Running, where she's pissed, somebody's done her wrong, and they better start running because she's got serious injury in mind for this person. So yeah, even though the music isn't as intense in that song, the lyrics kind of fill in for that. But the rest of the, just absolute blast all the way through. 5 stars for this, no doubt. I was blown away when I heard this. Listened to it again, listened to it a third time. Couldn't wait to hear it again. I have got to get this at one point. Rock Goddess. They've got their self-titled album coming out this month, and then they have another one that's going to be released later that year. Now, at this point, I have not heard that album yet. Cannot wait. I think it's November, maybe October that comes out, but I will definitely get to that one as well. It's called Hell Hath No Fury. Excellent album. I'm so glad I found this. Rock Goddess. Terrible name, great album. They do have a song at the very end called Heavy Metal Rock and Roll, which is typical of a song with rock and roll or heavy metal in the title. It's not great. You know, it's the low point on the album. But it's the last song, so you don't have to listen to it. It's a bit, the music's great, but the lyrics are, you know, that pandering, hey, we're heavy metal, rock and roll. You know, I'm not into that. But yeah, Rock Goddess. Just do not pay attention to the name of the band. Trust me, this absolutely rocks. Valentine's Day 1983, Molly Hatchet released their 5th album called No Guts, No Glory, and they tried to update their sound a little bit for the 80s. They got a little bit of, you know, synths going on in there, some keyboard action going on. They get even a little record scratching on some of the songs, and they even have a song about breakdancing on this album. Okay, none of that is true at all. This is Molly Hatchet keeping their sound consistent. Just this album could have come out in 1978. You know, that's how it sounds. They could not care less that it's 1983, but it's great to have their original lead singer Danny Joe Brown back. He is basically the sound of Molly Hatchet as far as I'm concerned, with his distinct kind of growl, bellowing vocal that he has. You know, they sound like Molly Hatchet again, and they sound like a band on this album to me that is rejuvenated. They got their spirit back. They're ready to prove something, and the album pretty much, unfortunately, got ignored. But I think it's a pretty strong album from Molly Hatchet. Starts off with What Does It Matter? It's a nice way to start things off. Basic southern rock kind of stuff going on. Lively. It's a band that, you know, they've been around. They're doing their thing. They know what's up. Song after that, same basic principle, just great rock and roll there going on. Great again, great to have the original vocals back. And then you get Sweet Dixie. Now we're getting into a well-traveled road here. A song all about, you know, the great things about Dixie, and can't wait to get back to that Orange Blossom Special and that Sour Mash and that Red Dirt. And you got Willie on the radio or whatever. It's the kind of thing you've heard a time or two before, to say the least. But, you know, it's a nice shuffle boogie thing going on. Fall of the Peacemakers is where the album really takes off. This is the centerpiece of the album. This is like a 9-minute long, 8-minute long, somewhere around there. Epic. It's the kind of thing you expect from the band that gave you the cover of Dreams I'll Never See. It's right up there with that. And this is all about, you know, mentioning John F. Kennedy and John Lennon, not by name, but, you know who they're talking about. And basically any of the guys and women who have talked about, you know, peace and love and let's all get along, and then somebody shoots them. You know, so, you know, follow the peacekeepers, you know, stop the madness, stop the tragedy, and then it goes into this killer, long guitar outro that, you know, lasts half the song. And that's exactly the kind of thing you got to love about the southern rock bands doing that classic thing, and they're keeping it up in 1983. Right after that, What Does It Matter kicks off side 2. An excellent melody in that song. Just an incredible upbeat kind of pop sensibilities, but keeping their southern rock, you know, sort of motif going on as well, blending it all together for this great riff that's in there. That is an excellent way to keep the momentum up. Later on, you got this song called On the Prowl. And the lyrics to this one will catch your attention if you're paying, you know, if you're listening for lyrics. This guy is on the prowl. He's after this woman. He's going to get her. He's a creeper. He's a stalker. And he says that. He's not mincing words. He's getting, he's a hunter, he's creeping, he's a stalker. And, there's a lot of songs about, baby, I'm going to get you, and I'm going to get your love. But this guy is not playing around with poetry. He's a stalker, and he's going to let you know. So you got to give a little bit of credit for the blatant honesty in the song On the Prowl. It ends with this excellent instrumental with some high-key piano in there called Both Sides. And excellent way to end the album. It's a really great instrumental. This is a really great album. It did not get any love when it was released, didn't get much attention. I really like this, and if you're a fan of Southern rock or kind of mid-late 70s AOR rock, later called classic rock, you definitely want to check this out. If you're into like English synth pop, it may not be your thing, but it's Molly Hatchet returning true to form and putting out what I think is definitely one of their best albums. No guts, no glory. On the 18th of February, Man for Man's Earth Band released Somewhere in Africa, which contained their 1984 hit single called The Runner. I am going by the US one, by the way. That's why The Runner is on here. There were different versions of this all over the world. The UK version is completely different than the US version with different mixes, songs with different lengths, different tracks entirely, different running order, of course. Then the CD comes out. It's in a different configuration. The US CD has bonus tracks on it from the UK one, so I'm just going with the US the original album and cassette, basically. So, yeah, starts off with Demolition Man, which is a song written by Sting. First, it was actually done by Grace Jones. She had a video for that played on MTV, as far as I know. I didn't have MTV at the time. It certainly was never on Friday Night Videos or anything like that. But then the Police did it themselves on Ghost of the Machine. And then 2 years later, we have Man for Man's Earth Band doing it to kick off this album. Again, the US version. Then you get The Runner, the song that was the single. It seemed like every 10 years or so they would have one hit in the US. And this was their one for the, 84. The video of that used to play all the time on Friday Night Videos. It's just basically people, like running in a marathon or whatever, leaping over the little barrier things, whatever those are called. I think it maybe have been a relay. I don't know. Anyway, decent song. It's okay. It's nothing that's going to be mind-shattering or whatever. What is kind of mind-shattering is when you get more into the album, especially side 2. It's more of it, because it's called Somewhere in Africa, so it's more of a tribute to South Africa, where Manfred Mann is actually from, which I did not even realize that. But yeah, so it's pretty authentic. It's pretty heartfelt. It's not just somebody, trying to put out an African album just to be cool, like, a Paul Simon type of thing or whatever. He really is getting in touch with his heritage. And that's where the album, I think, really kind of breaks free from just sounding like another rock band from the 60s and 70s doing an early 80s album, and really takes on its own identity. Starts off with the very short Somewhere in Africa title track. But then you get Redemption Song, the Bob Marley song, done with an 80s kind of musical style, but also South African singers in the background. So it really takes on this completely different feel, which I think really, really works. Of course, Bob Marley is the Jamaican feel, and you have the South African feel here with a little bit of an 80s flavoring all over it with the synths and things like that. So it can either turn out to be a complete mess, or it can actually gel together and blend well, and I think this actually blends pretty well. So a nice job on that. And then you get this 9.5 minute long African suite where it just goes full on Africa, like most of side 2. And really has the African feel, the lyrics about specific African things like Zulu, falling in love with the guy from another tribe, and are they going to be able to get along, and that kind of thing, and just different kind of stories, all concerning South Africa. So I think it does work. It is an impressive album. It was not an album that I was familiar with at all. I remember seeing it, but I never actually got it as a kid or listened to it. I didn't have any friends that had the album or whatever. And then later on in the 2000s, just kind of forgot about it, never really streamed it or anything. So it was nice to be able to check this out finally. Like I said, I was only familiar with the song The Runner, which I don't even think is on the UK version of this. So if I ever see this somewhere, which I never see this album anywhere, but if I see this somewhere and it's, $5 or something, I think I will definitely pick this up. It's the kind of thing you can throw on every once in a great while and really sink your mind into or whatever, and really be kind of taken away with the musical landscape of this. But it is definitely different. It is different from a lot of the 80s albums, like I said, put on by sort of, what they're calling classic rock bands now. If you're listening to this and you're expecting Blinded by the Light, you're not going to get that. If you're listening to this expecting doo-wah diddy diddy dum diddy doo, you are definitely not going to get that. So just know that going in. But a nice. I don't know how the UK variation of this would work, because this seems like it goes together really well. You've got side one, which has a little bit of the Africa flavoring mixed in with just basic pop song. You got the Sting song and the Runner song. You've got the Eyes of Nostradamus, which kind of has a folky kind of flavor. You have Third World Service. The version of that is on here is different than the one on the UK one. It's a lot shorter, and it has this female voice sort of introducing the news in South Africa. It doesn't actually get to the news. They sing the news part, but she's just introducing it. So you get a little flavoring in there, but it's side two that just goes full on into the concept. So an interesting listen overall. I'm glad I got to finally check this out. It's not going to be for everybody, and it's not going to be for you if you're, like I said, if you're expecting what you've heard, the big hits from Manfred Mann from the 60s and 70s. But overall, I will give this 4 stars, Somewhere in Africa from Manfred Mann's Earth Band. So February 22nd was a dark day in music history. That was the date that Stix Kilroy was released. My God, what a terrible album. Now, I'm not the biggest Styx fan ever. I mean, I knew who Styx were whenever this came out, and in 1983, I was 10 years old, listening to all this top 40 current hit stuff for the first time. I was getting into current hit music, but I knew who Styx were because my older brother had like a couple of their 8 tracks, Pieces of 8, The Grand Illusion. So I recognized that name, but I remember them having at least better songs than this shit. Of course, it starts off with one of the worst songs of all time, and that is Mr. Roboto. I remember being 10 years old and not liking this stupid-ass song. I mean, I didn't like it then. I didn't like when it was re-released in a car commercial. I don't like it now. I know I have talked about this album before because I remember listening to this shit for a video, but I don't remember which video it was. So here I had to go listen to it all over again, and I swear I am never listening to this album again. I did it for you. I did it for you. Domo Arigato, Mr. Roboto starts off this album. Thank you very much, oh, Mr. Roboto. Be a bunch of dorkos. It's supposed to be some concept thing where I don't care about the concept. This song is awful. It was awful when I was 10 years old. It's awful now. Wait, though. I've got a secret. I've got a secret. I'm Kilroy. I'm Kilroy. I don't give a fuck. That song ends, and then the next one comes on, Cold War, with its wimpy-ass keyboards and dorky Styx backing vocals. Speaking of wimpy, that's followed by the other single that was unleashed to all of us, and we had to listen to if we were listening to the radio at that time, called Don't Let It End. Now, this is not even a power ballad. This is less than that. This is like soft rock. I don't even mean light rock. I mean soft rock. This would go on like elevator music station. This song is terrible. There is some soft rock that's fine. I don't mind some of it, love songs and whatever. This is awful. Primarily because of Dennis DeYoung's vocals. I'm not a fan of Dennis DeYoung's vocals. I'm not a fan of his songwriting. I don't like his vocals. I don't like his songwriting. I don't like him. So Don't Let It End is terrible with its stupid echo vocal. Don't go through that door. And then you get High Time. As if this album wasn't horrible enough, here's where the horns come in. Yay, horns! Cheap-ass synth-sounding horns in a rock album. That's what we need. We get heavy metal poisoning or some shit after that. That starts off, I think, side 2 or it's the end of side 1. I don't know. I streamed it. I definitely don't have this album. Heavy metal poisoning. This whole thing's, like I said, a concept album. So this song is where the overlords talk about banning heavy metal and whatever, but that's okay because Styx are the rebels and they're going to bring back rock no matter what the moral people say. They're not going to censor and outlaw rock and roll because Styx is going to come back and they're going to save rock and roll. Guess what, Styx? When they were talking about banning music back in the 80s or whatever, they weren't talking about your band. They were talking about like Prince and like Judas Priest. They were even talking about Cyndi Lauper's She Bop later on, banning that. They weren't talking about Styx. Nobody's trying to ban Styx unless it's for reasons of good taste. Wow, this album is horrible. There's a song on towards the end, Haven't We Been Here Before, that sounds like it was written by a bunch of high schoolers for a high school musical. The way it's sung, it's just, the whole album's terrible. I'm not into the whole revisionist shit that came along a few years after the car commercial. And oh my God, Mr. Robato's so catchy and so kitschy and so retro. And it's terrible. That's what it is. It's terrible then, terrible now. And you may be asking yourself, you know what? Why do you get so angry about shitty music like this? Can't you just let it go? No, I can't, because here's the reason. Here's the reason I get so fucking pissed off. Is because I understand time. And I understand that when music like this is promoted, there's only so many hours in the day. There's only so many minutes in every hour. So every 4 or 5 minutes that's dedicated to this cocaine-fueled has-been band that's just driven by pompous ego, that's 4 or 5 minutes we can't hear another band that might be more deserving to be on the radio or be on MTV. Another band that might be trying to break through. They've paid their dues. They're talented. They're passionate. They're playing because they want to. They're singing about real things from the heart. We can't hear that because we've got to play the band that's got the Coke money behind them, that's got the hotel stay and airline fee behind them, so you can give away the big contests on the radio and on MTV. We got to play that song. So we can't play this other song. That's why I'm so annoyed by shitty music like this that was constantly on. And that Mr. Roboto song went on for like at least a year in like heavy and recurrent rotation on at least the 2 radio stations that I was listening to. And it's really ridiculous because it's like Styx was always one of those bands, not necessarily this album, but like the 70s stuff, they always came across to me as like some US Midwestern cheap version of Queen. They were like a Queen, like Renegade is basically just a retread of Bohemian Rhapsody. But they were absolutely huge here because I guess they were from Chicago for one. So they were kind of like a regional, sort of band, similar to like an REO Speedwagon type thing. So they were huge here. But I still find it hard grasping that these Midwestern guys in the 70s, and it was all about cars and beer and pussy, and they're going to go to the Styx concert. They're going to go buy the Styx album with the ballerina shoes on the back of it, and the songs like Babe and Crystal Ball and just these stupid Dennis DeYoung ballad. I mean, I like some of the Styx songs, but I found out later they were mostly the Tommy Shaw song. They were mostly like the Miss America and stuff like that. But yeah, enough. I'm done talking about Styx, and Kilroy was here with its ridiculous concept. This sounds like a concept of let's just put together an album of shitty music. That's what this is. And you'll notice, I guess I'm not done talking about it, you'll notice on the follow-up album, the live Caught in the Act album, it's from this tour, but they leave off a bunch of the Kilroy was here music, and they stick to the classics. That's because this album was so horrible, it basically broke up the band. Because half the band was like, yeah, this isn't very good. Why do we have to play this night after night? And as the tour went on, they played less and less of it. That's the legend. I don't know if it's true or not. What I do know is this is awful, and I'm giving it 1 star. And just so we're clear, I am not giving anything 0 stars. 0 stars means I haven't rated it. So 1 is the lowest it can go. 1 star for Styx. Kilroy was here. Secret. I got a secret. It's no secret. This is terrible. All right, time for a hot take. Are you ready for a controversial review? Hot take incoming right here. Are you ready? I actually like a Rufus album that does not feature Chaka Khan more than I like some of the ones that do. Now, it's not that I don't like Chaka Khan. Chaka Khan's awesome. I especially like her solo stuff, soaring voice, excellent just personality and look all along. She's got it going on. Obviously, it's Chaka Khan. But some of those Rufus albums that she's on, especially ones like Street Player, I am not fond of at all. They go into full-on smooth jazz on some of those songs. Like, hey, Hollywood! You know, they totally underutilize Chaka Khan's powers to the point where they're sounding like the Manhattan Transfer or some such shit. But there is none of that on the 1983 Rufus album called Seal in Red. It's mostly the electro-funk type of stuff that's going on in 1983. And yeah, 1983, when it comes to like R&B, soul, funk music, it's not exactly 1973. So it's kind of slim pickings to find some good stuff. This album is decent. And again, it's called Seal in Red. That means like when you take your red wax and seal something shut, as you can see on the cover. It doesn't mean like a seal dressed up like Eddie Murphy Delirious. Seal in Red starts off with Take Me to the Top. I believe that was the single. It's decent enough. It's peppy. You know, it's upbeat. It might get some people dancing around. It's all right. You got The Time Is Right after that. That's one of those songs that's all about, oh man, the time is right for loving and putting away the hate and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's just kind of there. When I Get Over You is a ballad. That's decent enough. A lot of decent enough stuff on here, especially considering it's, like I said, like the electro-funk of the early 80s. But yeah, Rufus is not putting the smooth jazz stuff on this album. So I think I actually enjoy this one more than some of their late 70s stuff, because at least they don't sound like music from a dentist's office on here. It's upbeat, it's funky in its own kind of, 1983 kind of funky way. It's got the best songs towards the end, actually. Distant Lovers is funky with a nice melody going on, and the final track on here called No Regret actually has a nice melody going on as well, nice and funky stuff going on, but you got to get all the way to the end of the album. Now, I'm not saying it's awesome, I'm not saying it's mind-blowing, you got to run right out and get it 5 stars, but it's better than what's previously on the album. You get a little robot voice going on in the song You're Really Out of Line. That's a great title. You got some ballads on here, again, Saving This Love, sounds more like light rock type of thing. But overall, it's an interesting listen, especially if you're into the early 80s electro-funk type stuff. It's pretty much kind of there. It's got its moments, it's got its non-moments. It's Rufus. It's not only Rufus either. It's some guys from Chicago, the band, as well, doing some horns. And you got George Duke on here, Patty Austin as well. So overall, some decent stuff on here, some not so decent stuff. It averages out to be about a 3-star album. Rufus and Seal in Red. On the 28th of February, we got a new album from the Ramones called Subterranean Jungle, and this one, the Ramones putting out albums at this point, each one has a little bit of a different flavor going on. They're just trying just a little bit of a different spice, something that makes it unique. And on this one, it is the production sound, the sound of the drums especially. And it really is noticed right away in their cover of the Music Explosions, A Little Bit of Soul, the very first track on here. The drums have this kind of poppy, kind of reverb, pop music, not pop as in the sound. But reverb on there doesn't really sound like classic Ramones, and I'm not really sure it works for them. But thankfully, the effect is not used as much as it is for the rest of the album. So you get the cover version of a 60s tune, and then a cover version of another 60s tune. So you're thinking maybe this will be just a covers album, but no, it is not. Just the first 2 tracks on here, A Little Bit of Soul and I Need Your Love. You get Outsider after that, and there is where Dee Ramone makes a vocal appearance. Now, I'm listening to Dee Ramone, he's got kind of more of a raspier, throatier voice, and I'm like, man, I'm really digging this. It really goes well with the music, giving, Joey Ramone a break with his usual kind of thing he's got going on all the time. Hey, little girl, that kind of thing. And it works. I love it. I love Dee Ramone's voice, and I'm like, man, he should do more Ramones songs. And then I get my wish later on in the album when they covered Time Has Come Today. And I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't work as well as the vocal in Outside. I mean, it's not horrible or anything, but the Chambers brothers definitely have nothing to worry about with the Ramones cover of Time Has Come Today. It's okay. I mean, it's okay. And yeah, this is a decent Ramones album. It's high energy. It's definitely not up to the classics of the 70s, but I do like this more than the one that came before it. And I actually think I like this more than End of the Century as well. So a little bit of a bounce back to the fun, kind of more rock-oriented Ramones. They still got, you know, the punk feel, but it is kind of watered down. It is 1983. A lot of the punk bands were doing that at this point. American punk had kind of, you know, taken over. Not the Ramones, of course, are American, but they were way ahead of most American punk bands doing it when the Brits were doing it back in the 70s. So they kind of changed it up a little bit, a little more of a pop, you know, production, but harder rock songs. So it mixes together well for us, an enjoyable, you know, Ramones album. It's definitely not their best, nowhere near their worst. And you get other tracks on here, the goofy, you know, whenever I eat my vegetables and I think of you song that ends it up, where his baby's been taken off to East Berlin, similar to the KKK took my baby away, you know, it's just kind of going back to that theme. Of course, now she's in East Berlin. But yeah, different stuff on here. You got this psychotherapy kicking off side 2, where, you know, it's kind of like, you know, he's back into the I want to be sedated, you know, back into the hospital type of, you know, mental ward type thing. And he's got glowing eyes this time. Joey Ramone actually lets his vocal shine a little bit, doing a little bit of a higher notes and some actual, you know, real singing in the song In the Park. And in the track before that one, he lets you know that, hey, he's just a regular dude who likes to have a good time. He likes to get drunk. He likes to dress punk, you know. He's just doing his thing. And the Ramones certainly are just doing their thing on this one. It is a better Ramones album than a lot of what would come later, and enjoyable. I will go ahead and give this, you know, 4 stars. It is Ramones, you know. It is, like I said, it's lively, it's enjoyable. Nothing awful on here. Nothing like, oh man, what happened to these guys? You know, like I would hear later on in albums. I don't have this one. I need to get this at one point. You know, I forgot that it was this good. I always kind of dismiss their later albums as being in a pack and like, you know, don't need those. I don't remember that big box set came out of their later stuff, and I kind of passed on that. But Subterranean Jungle, not too bad for Ramones. If you've skipped out on this one like I have, you might want to give this one a second chance. And so I think wrapping this up on a nice positive note like that is a good way to end this particular part of the series. Rating the albums of 1983 going chronologically. We are going to be at the end of February in the next video, where I will be reviewing albums from Quiet Riot, U2, Michael Bolton, back when he tried to be a rocker, and also Beach Boy Goes Solo. Won't you please join me for that, and thank you so much for watching this video, as we're just in 1983 for a while. It's nice to be here. Glad to have you here as well. I'm Robert Fitton, and hopefully I will talk to you again soon.